The disconnect that gamers have been feeling towards journalists has been going on for quite some time, I would say for the better part of a decade. But more recently, I think journalists have been getting exposed more than ever. And we're finally seeing that barrier between journalists in the gaming sphere and the regular gamers like you and me grow further, more and more apart from each other. Also, we are seeing just how much we are starting not to value anything the so-called journalists have to say. Today, I wanted to focus mainly on IGN and its reviews that the people they chose to review these games in question I'm going to talk about in this video. So, sit back and enjoy because we're about to roast some gaming journalists. Now, the first game I'm going to go over is Crimson Desert. Now, for me, this game has been the biggest surprise this year for me so far because of just how much is not only in the game itself, but how much support it has gotten after release. I don't think I've ever seen a development team so on top of making sure a single player game is bug free and has consistent quality of life updates to make sure that the player's experience in the game is as smooth as possible. And the fact that the game itself is pretty amazing and has a top of the line open world where you can easily get lost in doing whatever you wish is just one of the many highlights of the game. If you actually wish to hear my thoughts on Crimson Desert, just click the link on the top right of the video now. But anyway, let's look at what IGN had to say about Crimson Desert. And I'm not going to highlight some of the complaints that he had to the changes that have been updated in Crimson Desert, like some of the control issues at launch and bugs and things of the like, because those are understandable complaints, but they have been fixed, so there's no point in talking about them during this look over at the review.
Like how combat encounters almost always go on way too long.
So, this is the first thing here he talks about how combat becomes too long and there are too many enemies making combat tedious. Like, yeah, if you're spamming the same button, it's called learn combos, bitch. I mean, after I got used to the combat, I have to say I wiped out hordes of enemies because I used different button combinations. I was suplexing and RKOing every bandit in sight that I thought I was playing the latest WWE game. Also, there are way too many different elemental attacks and OP weapons you can find while exploring, like you said you did earlier, because, you know, the more damage you do, the quicker you take out enemies. But, you know, you can always upgrade your gear if you want to, you know, keep up with the enemy levels. For a reviewer that claims he likes Souls-like games, you don't understand the concept of Dark Souls. Because, you know, leveling up your character and your gear is a pretty big part of Souls games. Stolen Valor detected. Anyway, let's continue.
The story is aimless, the characters are forgettable across the board, the dialogue is often pretty hard to listen to, but almost none of it is really worth paying attention to, and much of it is actively cringeworthy.
Okay, now let's get on to the part he talks about the story, and okay, look, I do kind of agree that the story is not the strongest suit here to me in the game, but this game is all about the gameplay in the open world, which, by the way, if you don't really get that vibe in the first chapter of the game, I really don't know what to tell you. But to call the dialogue cringeworthy? Brother, you guys gave Mixtape a 10 out of 10. You don't have the right to say what is cringeworthy. That license has been revoked a long time ago, okay? I'm not standing up for the dialogue either. It is pretty bad. Maybe because it was poorly translated, since these are Korean developers, and maybe all the dialogue that was written was in Korean, which was translated later to English for the voice actors. But to call it cringeworthy is just way too much of a reach.
Some of the biggest misses are the boss fights, which abruptly take you out of the fairly casual action game combat that surrounds them and drops you into straight-up Souls-like fights against multi-phase enemies that feel extremely out of sync with the rest of the adventure. In one of the earliest examples, you carve your way through scores of bandits with ease before concluding with a super long 3-phase boss fight that includes some segments where you're just mercilessly swarmed by the bad guy while you have to dash around destroying totems. The only reasonable way to get through it is to have a ton of healing items on hand to eat by the fistful as you whittle down the enemy's health bar.
But okay, now let's talk about what this reviewer thinks about the boss fights. And yeah, you heard him. they take way too long and are too difficult. Like, way to tell me you're a magic user in Souls-like games without telling me you're a magic user. Now, I won't give him too much shit with some of these boss fights, because the devs did nerf a lot of these bosses, like the Redevil. But I gotta be honest here with you, champ. Maybe you're just bad at Souls-likes. And I'm not trying to say that I'm the best either, but if a boss is kicking my ass, it's almost like that is the point of a boss, no? To understand what you're doing wrong, whether it be from timing, not recognizing patterns, or maybe just being underleveled itself. To be a difficult challenge for you to overcome, like, you know, in every Souls game in existence, yeah, there are easy bosses in Souls games, but the ones you remember the most are the ones that beat your ass countless amount of times, and the ones that take hours almost to beat, like Radon and Mikula, or Bale and the Shadow of Erdtree DLC for Elden Ring. See how I can just remember those bosses by heart? It's because they were so difficult that when you finally break through and get that run and beat them, you remember that moment. And you feel a really big sense of accomplishment, kind of like a giant weight has been lifted from your shoulders. It's like kind of like this feeling of accomplishment that you get is kind of like another sense of that you're making progression in the game and you're finally understanding the boss's pattern recognition and timing. Same thing with Crimson Desert. Kind of like there's a reason for a dodge and parry button, and the fact you complain that you can just eat endless amount of food shows that you are getting hit a lot, and the devs understood that. So to make it fairer on the player, aka you, they take some challenge out of it by making it so that you can eat as much as possible during the boss fight so you can get health back as much as you want. And then to say leveling up your armor and weapons doesn't help just shows that you haven't been using the skill tree in the game. And it's not like you can just reallocate all your skill points at any time. Oh, wait. You actually can. And I just find it laughable that someone who is a big fan of Souls-likes and even calls himself a tryhard for the game is failing to grasp the idea of leveling up a character's health and stamina. Like what? Was that tutorial going over the skill tree too much for you, or what? What is it? Next, then, he complains about puzzles for actually being hard in the game. I always found it funny when reviewers do this. The minute something is not handholdy enough for them, then they try to point it out as a flaw. Like, yeah, it's a good thing that puzzles actually test your mind and make you think in different ways. It's like, what is it? Are you really upset that a video game is making you look stupid? Can your intellect really not handle a little bit of challenge? Like, yeah, a good puzzle is designed for it not to be easily solved. It's kind of like it's the whole point of a puzzle, no? Because if it were too easy, then they'd kind of just be annoying for being a speed bump in the action, because all you have to do is a simple puzzle to get from point A to B. But here they're actually challenging you in a space, because most of these puzzles are in a space where there's no combat whatsoever. But here they actually challenge the player like they are meant to do. Once again, real big gamer moment here, you know, complaining about something being too challenging to figure out on the first try. Like, why can't I just breeze through this game? It must be poorly designed. Yeah, okay. Finally, let's get to his verdict, shall we? Which again, I'm not going to give him too much shit for, because I understand that the version he played was vastly different in terms of quality of life and bug fixes that were quickly patched out by Perlbis shortly after launch. So, like, the fact that he had to deal with the stuff like no storage chests or lack of fast travel points is understandable, but honestly his main complaints are the ones that I highlighted already, being the combat, puzzles, and story. And like, the story I think is the most valid, because yeah, it's not the best for me, but it doesn't take anything away from the experience of Crimson Desert itself. I think the main focus of the game is the actual open world rather than the plot, which, like I said, I get it, especially if you're going to expect it to be a Witcher-like game rather than a more of a Dragon's Dogma style game, where the story is just there, but it's nothing to really write home about, you're going to be disappointed. So to be honest, I'm not surprised the reviewer gave it a 6 here. Do I agree with it? Hell no. But I do see where he is coming from with this. It's just, to me, the disconnect is where he claims to be a Souls gamer, but fails to understand the game, trying to win you over with his challenging gameplay and open world rather than its story. You know, kind of like what Souls games do when they have a very vague but well acted dialogue, little to no cutscenes other than some boss fights, but make up for it with amazing world design and gameplay. It's kind of like they're similar, right? And for someone to say that they understand Souls games and play a game that is trying to do what some Souls games do and does succeed at it in some ways, it's kind of like he's not grasping the concept of a game that doesn't need to have a story for it to be good. It's kind of funny when you think about it, don't it? It's really just ironic to me. But speaking of ironic, let's talk about the Mouse PI for Hire review IGN did recently, because this reviewer's literally, his first words in this review is going over how much he loves noir movies.
I love noir. I'll take all kinds. The hard-boiled detective, the seedy crime story, neo-noir, classic pulp, you name it, I'm buying.
Okay.
So when Mouse PI for Hire sauntered onto my screen the way Ilsa walks into Rick's in Casablanca, I was pretty excited about it. But noir isn't just an aesthetic to be thrown on like an old coat as you're leaving your office at the behest of a leggy blonde.
What the hell are you talking about?
When reviewing a game, making fun of cliche noir movies and complains about, get this, how it's not actually a noir movie. Like, you really can't write irony better than that. I tell you, you really can't. Like, I'm sorry, is this cartoon mouse game with over-the-top cartoony kills not serious enough for you? Like, is this really a joke? Because first of all, buddy, you're not a movie critic. Let's get this one out of the way. You are not a movie critic, and you immediately show your hand by going into your love for movies, when in reality you're playing an FPS boomer shooter that mainly focuses on, say it with me now, the gameplay. Like I said, you really can't write irony like this. It is just chef's kiss irony. Then, secondly, you complain about the lack of solving mysteries in the game, where, once again, it is a boomer shooter game, and the main aspect of the game is to shoot enemies. Like, how clueless are these people? The amount of weapons in the game, did that not give you a hint that the main part of the gameplay is shooting itself? Like, I mean, this isn't LA Noire, which, by the way, has noir in the fucking title of the game, which would have been a perfect game, by the way, for you to go into your love of noir films, since a game like that gives homage to those films, rather than a game about a cartoon mouse that actively makes fun of the noir genre.
Bothers me, however, is how overly referential so much of it is. The world is full of mice, so everything is about cheese. Everything. A bad guy? He's a cheese-legger.
These cheese-leggers in on the shrew racket.
Run into a lady mouse with a sultry voice? It'll be described as
Gorgonzola picante slapped on a mozzarella platter.
someone need to assure you they're telling the truth.
Swear on my mama's cottage curds.
This is charming initially, then it never stops. Everything is a reference to the fact that everyone is a mouse and mice like cheese, and when it's not, instead it'll be a reference to an old cartoon, or the fact that this is a video game.
And this seems to be the reviewer's main problem, in which the dialogue and story is his main complaint, rather than the actual gameplay itself. Which, once again, it's the primary focus of the game is the actual gameplay, not the fucking story or the characters. It is the gameplay. That is the focus of the game. Which he then goes to complain about how the shotgun in the game is weak, when in all reality it's actually one of the better weapons in the game.
Even here, though, I have issues. Weapons can feel weak, especially the shotgun. It's got the audio kick of a pop gun, and there's a strange disconnect to seeing something that sounds like a kid's toy blow off some poor mouse's head as you paint the white of the world with black ichor that spews from his neck.
And as someone that has beat the game myself, even one of the power-ups it gives you gives the shotgun a charged shot, making the shotgun itself more powerful. Like, I know this guy has never even used this charged shot once, because if he did, he wouldn't be complaining about it. Because, yeah, it's weak if you never use the ability, if you upgrade it, and you just shoot, like, you know, bigger enemies with it. But in this review, I could see that you upgraded it, because this weapon's upgrades are extremely parallel to the ones in BioShock, in which the upgrades not only give a nice visual attachment, it usually gives an alternate purpose for the weapon itself. But, you know, way to go, reviewer, not understanding one of the game's mechanics in which upgrading is important, gives a weapon alternate uses. Mind-blowing.
Enemies mostly come out of doors marked with a skull that you can't enter, robbing these areas of anything remotely resembling a sense of place. Levels also really like to pull the "we're gonna lock you in a room and throw baddies at you until they're dead or you are" shtick a little too much for my taste.
But then, this is not even the best part. Then he complains how the level design is essentially locking you in a room with baddies until you die or they do. Like, yeah, that is the definition of what a boomer shooter is, you fucking moron. I mean, like, you even mentioned in the review of the older original Doom games in the video, but I guess you never played them because that's exactly how they are too. Once again, coloring me shocked that when a reviewer mentions a game in the genre of the game they're currently reviewing, only for them to fail understanding the point of the genre that they are referencing. Like, I never thought I would hear the day a complaint in a shooter game is that the level actually makes you have to shoot tons of enemies. I mean, just look at the game, look at this dude's gameplay, man. I mean, just look at this. I can understand why you complain about the enemies, because you clearly can't hit anything. And once again, I am not the best first-person shooter player ever. But damn, man, enemies die pretty quickly if you actually shoot them.
Lock safes to open with your tail, which pulls double duty as a lockpick. Some of these locks are on a time limit, or must be solved in a limited number of moves, and you only get one shot at the good stuff they hold. Others are so easy you could probably solve them by letting an actual mouse run across your keyboard. It's very jarring.
But then he goes on to complain about how the lockpick minigame has some hard to pick locks and some easy to pick locks, and even calls them jarring for some reason. Like, every lock picking minigame in the history of gaming does have varying difficulty of locks in the first place. It seems like you're finding things to just complain about just to complain about them. Or have you actually never played a game with a lock picking minigame in it? So which one is it? Because you're really having a hard time understanding the concept of lockpicking.
It's an actual issue here. Jack Pepper is a PI who kills more people in a single mission than Philip Marlowe has in every book Raymond Chandler ever wrote combined. I don't care how corrupt the cops are. A private detective can't break into a police station and slaughter them en masse and then go about his day. In one particularly nonsensical scenario, Jack inadvertently burns down an opera house to save a guy running for mayor, and he ends up fighting an opera singer and shoots her. Is she dead? Did I just kill an actress for being angry I burned down her workplace? If I didn't, have I left her alive and unconscious inside a burning building?
And it keeps getting worse, because this reviewer then goes into complaining about the fact that how is it possible for one private investigator to take down an entire corrupt police force? Or why are we shooting an opera singer in an opera house? Even though, if you paid attention there, or any attention at all, by the way, they tell you that in the beginning of that mission, that the gangsters were disguising themselves as opera performers. And secondly, it's a cartoon mouse shooter. Why does it need to make sense? I mean, there's literally one level in the game where you're trying to find a missing magician in a whole different dimension. So this is a complaint to just complain. Like, talk about grasping at straws at this point. We're literally complaining about a whole lot of nothing here. But he tries to make sense of this by saying the game wants you to care about the characters in the game. And no, it doesn't. Like, holy yap. The characters in the game are one-note farces of the characters you would see in a noir movie, including the main character, Jack Pepper himself. Because none of these characters actually grow. They still spout the same one lines, they still have the same jokes, and they don't grow as actual characters. And you really act like this pretentious movie snub who tries to make sense of everything when you can't even see the ironic character traits of the main character in front of you. Like, it's just, I don't know what to say at this point, besides one of my favorite quotes in life. Life is hard, but it's even harder when you're stupid. I think this quote fits perfectly with this review and to this reviewer. Anyway, he goes on to give it a 6, which is just laughable because the reasoning behind it was what we already discussed just now. And yeah, this review is just laughable in itself and was made by a wannabe movie critic rather than a person reviewing an actual video game. And I did this review myself and actually talked about, the gameplay and went into expecting a Doom-like game and a boomer shooter, and I got exactly what I wanted. So if you're actually interested in checking that out, there will be a link to that review in the top right corner. But let's go over some of the comments real quick. Alright, let's look at this comment by Dapper Alligator. Why is this cartoon mouse game so silly? Like, seriously. Like, these people are so delusional. I hate to be that guy, but proceeds to be that guy a lot. Like, a lot. Says Chameleon 1061. And that's true. This guy really is just a pompous asshole. Plays mouse game. Mad at the amount of cheese references. I like this one. Expecting realism from a plot where you play as a mouse is crazy work. Literally fails to understand the whole point of the game. My man, the opera singer was a criminal dressed as a singer. It explained in the dialogue minutes earlier. And then this guy right here, Exalted 20XX. Don't let this guy do another review in his life. Please, I second that. This dude 100% has his toilet for consent before he sits. Oh my god. This is the kind of guy who thinks mayonnaise is too spicy. Bro definitely needs a glass of water to wash down his water. The amount of times I said because it's a cartoon during the review is higher than the score they gave. And as you can see, he's getting roasted in the comments like he should. Okay, now let's look at our last and most painful review, being the mixtape review. And this, by the way, was an extremely hard watch, and I definitely had to pause it multiple times out of cringe-induced embarrassment. Honestly, it was a harder watch than the Mouse PI for Hire review, which really says something. But anyway, if you don't know what mixtape is, not only do I envy you, I'm even more sorry to make you aware of its existence. But it is a game, and a huge quotes around the game part, because it's as much as a game as a colonoscopy is, a new way to get friendlier with your doctor. Because it is just an interactive movie, more or less. There really isn't any gameplay in the game actually at all. Now, I don't mind these games. I really like The Quarry and Until Dawn, which kind of feel like movies, but at least in those games, you feel like the director choosing what characters should do or shouldn't, and what choices they should make along the way. But this game is nothing like that at all. Hell, it's not even like a Telltale game. And there are no true endings, there's no bad endings, there's no good endings, there's just one ending. And it is nothing like those other games that I just previously mentioned. No, in Mixtape, there is just one ending. You don't really get much choice in how things play out, like, normal games would do. Nope. Instead, you get to watch this movie unfold and interact with it a few times with a few mini games here and there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, let's get into the review.
on the other hand, feels more rooted in how actual people talk and is all the better for it. Sweet without being saccharine, thoughtful but never forced, and always funny.
There have been noise complaints.
Okay.
Yeah, oh wow. So funny. That's definitely not cringe-worthy dialogue whatsoever. And you could really tell that they're trying their best to hype up all this mid here, because this is the first example they give of what good dialogue is. In fact, even one point, there's a quote that he says where he says, after reaching the end and replaying it, there are no changes in the story or characters or anything whatsoever to make your next playthrough maybe different from your first. So what is the point of going through it again? And he even says in the game is only 3 hours long. So really, what's the point of replaying it if everything stays the same and the game is pretty short? Once again, we have a game reviewer grasping at straws to try to prove a point.
I'm bored. I'm too young to be this bored. You want to get blackout drunk in a field? I can't.
I'm sorry, but this can't really be the dialogue you choose to highlight on how good the writing is in this game. Like seriously, you can't tell whether this was written by an AI using prompts or a millennial with no friends growing up. You decide which is the truth. And look, I know you might be saying, why are you so harsh on mid-tape? And you're right, if you enjoy this stuff, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the way this reviewer talks about it, you know? Like, you expect it to be this great, heart-gripping story, not just some I'm a teenager, I don't want to grow up, and I don't want to get old kind of a story. It's the fact that it's looked at for more than what it is. And for reviewers, especially IGN, to give it a perfect score out of 10 means the fact that other games in the future that might actually fall into that 10 out of 10 category would be disvalued because of shit like this. Because you can clearly tell that check wired through to their bank account, because for them to hype up such a mediocre game like this, hell, it's not even close to any Telltale games or anything like that. And for them to be acting like this is the game of the year is just laughable. And goes to show you that there is no integrity in game journalism whatsoever. Because they tried way too hard to make mid-tape seem like a Machiavellian type to the medium, while they're getting pissy and complaining about a cartoon boomer shooter having too many enemies to shoot and not enough mysteries to solve. It's just so baffling, and to me it shows just how much gaming journalists are anything but actual gamers. Because any game that involves skill, they complain about it's too hard, and mark it for being too hard, and dock points from it, even though it clearly shows the lack of attention on their part. While giving mid-tape here a perfect score, even though it has a handful of unfailable minigames, and a story that stays the same no matter how many times you play through it. So, all in all, the real disconnect here is with the journalists themselves, being more and more dissociative from what gamers actually like and want more of. And they are actively trying to look down on it, or trying to say something else is what we need more of rather than what we actually need as gamers. When it's just not the case. And my question is, why do we even need IGN in the first place anymore? I mean, there are plenty of independent reviewers out there that actually play through games and actually enjoy gaming. What is the point of these journalists now? And that is just it. There is no point to them. So my thinking is they are really trying to engagement farm by doing these outlandish things like having these super bad takes on games just to get more views and clicks on their website. And for the most part, unfortunately, it has been working. It gets people to talk about it because even though as a collective we point and laugh at them, but we're still watching their videos and taking part and commenting on the video, thus boosting it in the algorithm. And to a failing game journalist, there is no such thing as bad publicity, because They are so close to being out of a job that driving people to watch their stuff by any means necessary is a sort of a last resort for them. Because if they were serious, no one would take them serious. And in journalism, you are taught to drive engagement to your piece by either coming up with a catchy headline that drives people to click and want to read it, and as long as that story is interesting, run with it regardless of how true it actually is. But hey, if this is the last dying whimper of game journalists, then so be it, because it is clear that this job is not needed. And now, with recording gameplay and the internet being so accessible, the need for these pompous assholes is actually really dwindling, because more and more gamers want someone that actually shares their views on gaming. Not a fake gamer who tries to act like he knows what's best for the genre and says he cares about it when in reality he's probably never even played it at all. Or a failed movie critic that fails to understand the seriousness or lack of what is trying to be conveyed through the gameplay. Or even someone that is trying to make you nostalgic for a time that you were never or he was never a part of in the first place. The less we have of these people, the better the gaming industry will be. And those are my thoughts on today's subject. I just want to give a quick thanks to all of you for watching today's video, and I also wanted to apologize for my lack of uploads lately. Just been a lot of real life stuff going on, a lot of things happening with my business and taking up a lot of my time, personal stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it's really not that important. But I will say I am definitely getting more uploads in the works going on right now, including more reviews on the next upcoming games in May and maybe some in June. I'm not really sure what comes out in June. But anyway, I also wanted to let you know that I did actually have a Pragmata review in the works. I recorded all my gameplay. I did actually a lot of the script work and recorded all of it, but I just decided to scrap it because, well, Pragmata came out like a month ago, and in gaming terms, it was pretty much last year. So I would have just been extremely late getting that review out. But long story short, I do think Pragmata is my personal game of the year so far, just because it just surprised me with how fun the gameplay is, how good the actual game is, and the replayability of it, like jumping into all those different modes. Well, really just the training sim and that one mode where it's kind of like a boss rush mode. I really like that, where you verse like the upgraded version of the bosses. But anyway, just extremely replayable, and it's just been really fun. I've been enjoying my time with Pragmata. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to get that out there. But next review will be out soon, and it's going to be on the new Lego Batman game that drops today by the time this video goes out, and then on to 007 First Light at the end of next week. So I just want to say thank you again. Thank you for all your support, all your patience, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.